Beyond the Wrench with Jay Goninen from Find a Wrench.
Welcome to another edition of Beyond the Wrench. Today's guest is one that I'm really excited to have on, Tim Cifelli, the marketing director at BoltOn Technology. Tim, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm in my man cave, or my den of geek here. So, but no, I'm doing great, Jay. And thank you very much for inviting me to speak on behalf of BoltOn to your audience today.
Yeah, love it. I love what you guys are doing. Why don't we start by kind of having you give us a little background on yourself, and a little background on BoltOn, and just kind of we'll dive in from there.
Sure. So I'm the marketing director of BoltOn Technology, as you said. And for those of you who may not be aware of who or what BoltOn is and does, we are a major software provider for the automotive repair space. Specifically, we create tools and applications that independent, multi-shop, dealer, collision, all types of repair businesses can use to add efficiencies to their operations, to communicate with their drivers, with their customers, specifically in the form of digital inspections and all the tools and accoutrements that go along with that, really creating a digital atmosphere for a shop, a digital environment for a shop that, coincidentally happens to be ideal for the situation we're all, working through, living through with, the lockdown and contactless. Shops can use our digital technology to communicate and share repair and inspections and photos and notes and videos with their drivers. The drivers can respond quickly, can ask questions, can communicate, can approve, the work gets done. They can even pay using digital technology. So what we've done is we've taken digital software and used it to enhance and grow and expand that repair shop customer experience. We've been around for more than 10 years. We've serviced over 10,000 repair shops, everything from the small mom and pop local garage that's been there for 50 years to large franchise multi-location brands. We've just to give you a sense of sort of the scope of this thing, not just BoltOn, but the idea of digital inspections, digital tools. We've recently announced about a month or so ago that the 50 millionth repair photo was shared between a shop and a customer and a driver. Actually, we're around 52 million now. That's how quickly.
That's insane.
So yeah, I mean, it's not a fad. It's not a gimmick. Digital inspections, digital technology. Maybe 10 years ago it was a new thing, and people thought it was gimmicky. It isn't. It is the standard. It is the norm now. Shops that don't do this are the ones that are going to sort of stand out, as opposed to when the shops that did it were the ones that stood out. So yeah, this is it. I mean, it may sound corny, but it's like, this isn't the future. This is now.
Yeah, it is, and it is funny because it's something that we talked about for a long time, and then ultimately, here it is. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So how about you? How did you get into this space in the first place? How did you get associated with BoltOn, and what was your background prior to getting in this?
Oh, I fibbed my way through the interview. No. I have a background in marketing, PR, advertising. Prior to joining BoltOn, I actually had my own brand agency for about 15 years. We serviced customers in all different industries. Automotive was one of them. But the one thing that I missed by being on the agency side, on the consulting side, was that I was always an outsider. I was always sort of like that expert or that consultant who was sort of coming in, putting a plan together, putting a campaign together, but never really like in on the ground floor to be able to like, truly understand like what the motivations were, what the goals were. Many times we wouldn't even be, the results wouldn't even be shared with us. It was almost like the companies were, the marketing directors who I worked with were more about getting a program launched than the results of the program.
Right.
And I really wanted to be in a situation where I could be involved with an organization from the beginning of like, what are their goals? What are we trying to accomplish? What are the problems we need to fix? What are the goals we're trying to achieve? To the idea, to the execution, to the measurement, to the results. And I was very, very lucky. And in Mike Risich, the founder of BoltOn, and his team reached out to me and gave me that opportunity to come in and really try to create that for BoltOn. We are we're all in house. In other words, like, we have it's not just like a marketing guy.
Right.
We have a whole team that focuses on this. And I was essentially, asked to create an agency, ad agency within BoltOn.
Wow.
To support, like, our clients are basically BoltOn and all of its products. Our audience is all of BoltOn's customers, right? So we brought a lot of those sort of different disciplines and expertise that you would normally get from an outside consultant or agent, and brought them all in house. It involves everything from branding to PR to, advertising. But really what it comes down to is, not what we want to say to the customers, to the industry, but it's like what the industry needs to hear.
Yeah.
What are they looking for? And it's like understanding that. And, the BoltOn team, it's innovative, not just in terms of software, but in terms of how the company runs, what it does, its operations. And, creating like this in-house ad agency, for instance, is an example of, Mike and the leadership team's innovation. It'd be real easy to just go hire somebody on the outside and say, all right, well, just, run a few ads every now and then.
Right.
That's not going to cut it anymore.
No, and I will say, back in the day when we could go to trade shows, right? You always had,
back in the olden days.
Yeah. You always
had. I was a kid. I used to go to 4 trade shows a month. Yeah. I have to walk uphill both ways.
Well, you always had a really well represented booth. Everything looked, I give you guys a lot of kudos for what you did, because you can tell that kind of ad agency approach really works, right? And you really drew a lot of eyes when you went into, say, Vision in Kansas City. You go and you have a really nice setup and everything looks really nice. So
well, I appreciate that. But
Yeah.
but we had to. Early on, I said that, 10 years ago, things like digital vehicle inspections, they were new. Some people even question whether or not they were, they had lasting power, but today it is the norm. But that also means that there's more and more companies that are trying to get into this space, and
Sure.
and they're all, it's very easy for everyone to look and sound alike. And if I'm a shop owner or a general manager at a shop, right, and I'm getting hit with all these different messages that kind of look and sound alike, how am I going to know what's the right one for me? Who's the best partner? What's the best, version? So it's that's what I meant by the messaging. This is for any company, not just BoltOn, but you need to put yourself in the shoes of the audience. Like, what do they want to know? What are their concerns? What are the things that keep those shop owners up at night? What are the goals they're trying to achieve? What are the problems they're trying to solve? And then you can, bring them the message about BoltOn and what we do in a way that answers those questions, as opposed to us just like, blurting out like, all of our talking points. That's a website.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's, that's a brochure. That's not
boring.
It's boring. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very one-sided.
Yeah. I agree. And that's, I think, brings us to a good point where one of the things that you and I talked about early on when you and I really started our relationship was the survey that you guys had put out with P10. So BoltOn Technology and P10 worked together on a survey to talk about kind of that next level of ownership, or what they see for trends within the industry. One, I think it was cool because it shows, more initiative over and above just the technology side in general, right? I think you're showing that, hey, you really do care about, what's going on in the industry. And the results I don't think were shocking, but I think there was some stuff that really sticks out from the standpoint of there's some consolidation going on. There's you could always see the consolidation kind of moving that direction, both from the independent side, and also from the dealer side, right? And so when I saw the survey, it really piqued my interest in terms of the trends that you're seeing and why it's important to kind of have, we actually just released a podcast with a CPA. He runs a company that's kind of a CFO for people.
I listened to that. That was a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. And he talked about how, how important it is to have your ducks in a row. And one of those things is everything that you're talking about in the survey. And so I guess maybe to start with, what really kind of drove you to want to understand that a little bit more?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So yes, we are a software developer, right? We're a tech company. But we quickly learned when we started to work with these, and again, we've been around for more than 10 years, so this isn't a new thing we've just happened upon. But we quickly learned at the time that it wasn't enough just to throw software out there and expect people to use it or use it the right way. If anything, we found that shops owners often would use a very small percentage of the software. They would find one or two things that really worked, and they would focus on that, but they were leaving all these other great tools and solutions on the table. So we found ourselves in a situation where we started to advise or talk to shops about best practices, how you could get the software to support your goals, and to fix your problems. Everything from scheduling to repeat business to efficiencies to even upselling. Yeah. Using it, figuring out ways that to upsell new wiper blades on rainy days. It's an easy upsell that it's all margin, but how many shops actually do that as a regular thing? We found ourselves in the situation where we were beginning to advise and train and coach. Now, we're not a coaching company, but we've got very much involved in the coaching sort of conversations in terms of how our software could help them with their operations. So, the logical evolution of that was that we need to be aware and cognizant of the issues, the trends, the concerns that the industry is faced with. I've said a number of times already, it's not what we want to say, it's what the audience needs to hear. It's what's important to them, right? And how we can help them. So as a result of that, we've gotten very much involved in things like thought leadership and expert opinions and articles. We do partner with a number of coaching companies, and rely on them for their training expertise, and we sort of help support them with the software. But as part of that due diligence and understanding the needs of the industry, we will very often run surveys and polls, not just with our customers, but with the entire industry. And in the situation you've mentioned, the case you've mentioned, we partner with P10 Magazine, whom I'm sure most of your readers are familiar with.
Yep.
And we drafted a survey that asked them about their future plans and goals, specifically when it related to, and when I say they, I mean the readers. So there was like 30-some thousand subscribers of P10 Magazine, shop owners, general managers, that sort of thing, who were all asked a series of questions about their plans for retirement and, how much they feel like they're working to grow their business, or are they just are they working a job, or are they running a business?
Trying to check the boxes to retirement, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like, are they going to how are they going to retire? Not just when, but how are they going to retire? Do they want to sell? Do they want to close the shop? They basically own the property and they're going to become a landlord, right? Are they going to give it to one of their kids? All those questions. And the results were like you said, not shocking.
Some of them, yeah.
And we'll talk about that, right? I think, well, why don't we just tell people the main takeaway of that was that, according to this survey, we found that 54% of the shop owners who responded plan on retiring within the next 10 years. So imagine
That's
you've
crazy.
got, let's say you've got 10 shops, 10 repair shops in a town, right? 5.5 of those are going to be gone within 10 years, right? Everybody's talking about the tech shortage. Nobody's talking about the owner shortage,
Yeah.
right? Now, put yourself in the. So what does that mean? That means that it's going to be a seller's market, meaning if or pardon me, it's going to be a buyer's market.
Yeah.
Rather, it's going to be a buyer's market, which means that if there's somebody out there looking to buy a repair business, right? You need to make sure that yours is the most attractive purchase or acquisition option, because if it isn't efficient, if it's a dirty shop, if it's a sloppy shop, if you've got no real sense of your customer base, if your customer base is going to leave as soon as you leave, right?
That's a
That's
problem.
not an attractive purchase option
Yeah.
for somebody, and guess what? You're not the only game in town. There's in that scenario, there's 4 other shops right down the street who are also looking to sell, and they may have a much better package for it. It's like staging a house.
Yeah.
You put your house for sale in the neighborhood, and there's 2 or 3 other houses there, and they're all selling for different prices, but then
It's
you
a
go
good
inside.
analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you go inside and you see that, well, this house is staged nicely, this house isn't, this one was clean, this one, the furniture's too big and the house looks too small, and and there's an art form to that, right? And it's not like it was, maybe when some of these guys, when they bought the shop, where they basically handed a bag of money with a dollar sign over to the owner, and they ran off into the sunset and they just put their name on the side. It's not like that anymore. I mean, if anything, many purchase situations are going to be a leverage buyout. It's in other words, the owner is not going to get their money all at once. They may get paid over 2 or 3 or 5 years, and they're being paid based on the profits of the business, which means that the new owner needs to have a profitable company in order to be able to pay you off, right?
Yeah.
So by the way, this is all pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? That's all pre-COVID. So how much did the situation change because of COVID? I would argue that, and we're going to do a follow-up survey, as a result, to see if things have changed. But I would argue that you're going to see some people were forced to retire sooner. In other words, they shut down and just never opened.
Yeah.
Or or their retirement plans were put on hold. They can't retire now because the revenue is down. Their shop got messy. They lost their customer. It is no longer the same product, if you will, that it was before COVID, and they've got to build it back up, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's on the retirement side. That's on the shops that are, the guys that are going off into the sunset. What about people who, aren't in a position to retire? This may be a situation where they can grow.
Absolutely.
You could be the guy that goes out and acquires 2 or 3 of these shops, these people that are looking to retire, right? And you want to be a multi-shop owner, right? Well, here's a way to do it, because there's going to be a lot of shop opportunities out there. Now, what does this have to do with BoltOn? Right? What does this have to do with a software company? What we argue is that there are things that all shops need to do, whether you're retiring or not. These are just general best practices, things that you need to do in order to generate the most revenue out of your business. So and you want to work. I mean, it's a cliche, but I mean, you want to be able to work smarter, not harder. You want to work less hours and make more money, right? You don't want to have a shop that is solely dependent on whether or not you're there. You want to be able to go, take a week off or go on vacation or take your kids to tour college campuses, and not worry that things are going to fall apart if you're not there. If you build a business that is solely reliant on you being there every single day, that is not a sustainable business.
And that's a job.
That's a job.
Right? Yeah.
You built a job, right?
Yeah.
And that may be fine for you. You pay your bills. You're able to send your kids to college. But like, if that business can't exist when you're not there, then you're right, it's not a business, it's a job. So there are things that there are tools, software tools that BoltOn uh, specifically has created that allow shops to be able to add efficiencies, improve relationships with customers, increase their repair orders, increase the number of return visits, right? Increase referrals, get paid faster with things like text to pay. These tools exist. I mean, in many cases, they particularly with BoltOn technology, these tools also integrate with your management system. Mm. So your POS, your accounting, your inventory, your work, your workflow, your time clock. A lot of this is all integrated. But if and then we have versions of the product that don't rely on a management system. They work off of the cloud. They're not anchored to something. So my point is, no matter what kind of shop you run, you have the opportunity, you have the ability to tap into many of these digital tools to create this situation for yourself. And that means that you can suddenly turn your business into a much more attractive opportunity for a potential buyer. Or if you're looking to buy, these are the things that you should be looking for in order to determine, I want to buy this one versus that one. Or you may be asking for, X amount of dollars, but here's data that tells me that you're really worth this. Right. So, then you can also negotiate and get a better deal. So like I said, for either the owner or that's selling or the person that's looking to buy, it's going to be a boondoggle in the next 10 years. Yeah. And I would argue that that's probably been accelerated by at least 2 years because of the lockdown. People want to get out faster then, but
I agree.
But, you can't just say I'm for sale and I think I should make this, you should give me this much money. You got to be able to back it up. And, having an efficient, having a profitable, having a documented business model, right, where you can show this information to a potential buyer is going to help you get the money you think you deserve.
Yeah, and it's structure, right? And I think that's, the structure piece for me is sometimes what I struggle with the most in our own business, right? And that's, I've got a great business partner who that's his strength. And we know that, like, he is so much better at it than I am. And so it's nice to have that kind of yin to the yang. Right. Yeah. But I there were a couple things, and as I'm looking through the survey that really, stuck out to me is that even at the core of the technology, one of the things you're trying to help improve is communication with customers and how vital that is to building trust for the long haul. Talk to me a little bit about maybe why, it's funny. We put technology as kind of the whole, but at the core of it, that communication side is so important, and how you communicate with a new demographic and how there's so much to unpack there on the communication side. Can you walk me through that piece a little bit?
Sure. And again, I mean, people can get hung up or fixated on the technology. The technology is just a tool.
Yes.
And in this case, it's a tool to help shops better communicate with customers. And what we mean by better communicate is to build trust, build relationships, create credibility that, frankly, isn't there in many situations. It's partially to blame on the fact that nowadays most people don't know anything about their vehicle, right? They know where the key goes and where the gas goes, and that's about it, right?
And whatever YouTube tells them, right?
Yeah, exactly. If they even bother to do that, and so when they walk into a repair shop, their defenses are up for the most part. Either they don't understand and they're intimidated, or they have a negative point of view where they think they're going to be taken for a ride. No pun intended. And that may, and let's be honest, there are some bad players out there, some bad actors out there who have done things that have hurt the impression of the industry. But that means that shops are not only challenged with trying to, build relationships and break down those barriers and build trust and transparency with these customers because of their own operations. But they're also now having to deal with, like, the bad vibes that were created by, everyone else in the industry. So what are we really talking about? I mean, that's sort of like that's a broad description. What we're talking about is, imagine, well, not imagine, you guys do this all the time, right? Customer drops a vehicle off at the shop, right? They then they go to work, or they go back home while you're working on it, right? You then call them up, a few hours later to, run down all the items that you've discovered that need to be fixed, all your recommendations, right? You call them up. They're in the office. They may be in a meeting. They may be on another call. They don't pick up the phone right away. They may not recognize your phone number, so it goes right to voicemail, right? Meanwhile, you're waiting and waiting and waiting for them to listen to the message and then call you back, right? While you're waiting, that vehicle is either sitting in the bay, up on the lift, hoping the person will call back and, give you approval to move forward. Or you put the wheels back on, drop the lift, put it back out in the garage, and moved another car in. Oh, and guess what? That's exactly when they call back, right?
Every time.
Yeah, every time, right? And then when you do speak to them on the phone, not everybody, has got a great, sort of phone presence, I guess, where, especially when you're busy and you're trying to run through as many of these as possible. So oftentimes, again, put yourself in the shoes of the driver. You're hearing, the service advisor, rattle off, well, it needs this, it needs this, it needs this, it needs this, it needs this. It's going to be about $800. You're like, what? I just brought my car in for an inspection. What do you mean I need $800, right? They don't understand. They don't know what you're talking about. Many times they don't want to even admit that, right? And the person on the phone, the person who called them, is just trying to get through this call because they got 12 others like that they got to get to in the next 10 minutes, right? So it's not a great communication, and more often than not, it doesn't end well. Where the driver will more often, was more likely to say, well, you know what, just do this and this, but don't do anything else. Well, that's stuff that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Right. Or if they can't do it today, at least schedule an appointment to come back and get it done later. But none of that really happens because of the way we've sort of, like, the way we communicate with each other. Now imagine, like in the olden days, right, where, you were able to bring the driver didn't leave, they stayed in the shop, right? Your tech looks at the vehicle, identifies these various things that need to be worked on, or, you need to bring attention to. You then bring the customer into the bay, under the car, and you point it out, you describe it to them, you show them, and you answer questions while you're doing it. Even if they don't necessarily understand all the technical mumbo jumbo, they still feel a lot more comfortable and have a greater appreciation that, like, I'm not being scammed here. I can see the difference between, a brake pad that should have this much width versus my brake pads that have this much width, right? They can understand that, and they're more likely to approve the work, or at the very least agree to come back for a follow-up visit. You can't do that when you're talking to them on the phone,
right?
Especially when you leave a voicemail. I think the last stats I saw was that the average time to return a voicemail is 3 hours, versus the average time to respond to a text message is 3 minutes. Right?
That's
so imagine
crazy.
Now, imagine, so our technology, our communications technology, imagine if the customer who we just talked about, we changed the situation. They drop their vehicle off and you tell them, okay, sir, ma'am, right, let me have your cell phone number. We're going to send you a copy of your digital inspection as soon as it's done. And you'll be able to see all the different, images and notes, et cetera, right? Now they're expecting something from you imminently. When they get it, they're going to be able to respond to it sooner, whether they're in a meeting or, doing something else in the office, right? They can look at it while they're, doing other things, right? They have the information right in front of them instantly. They can see what you're recommending and why. They can, if they want, call back, right, and have a conversation with you, or right there in the inspection, they can go ahead and approve this, approve that, not this, not that, right? Boom. Now your tech is able to start working on the job, right? And you're not waiting. That also means that not only is that vehicle going to be ready when you said it was going to be ready, and you can't blame the customer because you didn't call me back in time, right? But you're able to get more vehicles through the shop, right? When the work is finished, an invoice could be sent to the customer, right? Not only were they able to approve it, they could even pay via their cell phone with text to pay technology, right? They don't even have to come into that way. Now they can come and pick the car up at any time because they've already paid for it. The work's been done. They've already paid for it. You don't have to have somebody like waiting until like 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night for the vehicle to be picked up. They're not stuck having to come back the next day to get the car, right? You could have a situation where there's like a drop box where they can get their key. And I mean,
it's just
yeah.
It's a lot less stressful when you don't have a line of customers waiting at the service desk, right? And like that's one thing that I've seen as a kind of something where in a big improvement in shops over the last 5 years, I'd say, has been trying to control that a little bit, because when it gets overwhelming and there's a line of people out the door and it's you're trying to take care of everybody, the more, like you said, you can paint visuals ahead of time. I think a key takeaway for anybody listening to this is the more you can paint, really supply visuals for something, you're going to have an easier time talking about it, just because it's it's there. That muffler is broken. Like there's nothing like there, or like
yeah, it's rusting through. See it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's amazing. Now I do want to circle back to the survey just a little bit here, because as I'm browsing it again, one of the things that just the other findings, right? The other things that you guys found in this survey were obviously that technician shortage is a big thing. And there was a stat that talked about how more than 51% of shop owners say they plan to hire one or more employees over the next year. Now, again, I think it'll be interesting when you guys do the post-COVID survey, hopefully post-COVID, current COVID survey, whatever it is, but to see how that happens. But how we see it through our business is that's very, very true. I mean, it still feels like every shop is hiring and not worried about that drop in business that maybe they were in May of 2020. I think that stat is still really strong.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that, and you guys, at Finder Wrench certainly know this much better than we do. But, our sense is that, even though these shops plan on hiring, new technicians, new employees, where are they going to get them from?
Right.
I mean, we all know that it's a shortage, right? And and even if you look at the number of people that are in the auto repair trade schools and tech schools, right? There's not enough that are currently in school to fill the need that is out there. So it's not like a current thing. And again, we're rehashing stuff that people well know. And an organization like yours, which is, I think essential to the fact of connecting shops with technicians. Now, while there may be more available because of layoffs and shutdowns, and we certainly understand we believe that's a temporary thing, because as soon as things pick back up, people find jobs, and then there's still shops that are looking to fill those positions. Some of the stuff what I spoke earlier about us getting into sort of best practices and some sort of operational advice when it comes to the tech shortage, a few things that we've identified that you and I would love to hear your opinion about it as well.
Right.
This is your space, but it's not always a black and white. I'm going to hire somebody, leaves, I'm going to hire somebody to replace them, right? There's plenty of retired technicians out there who maybe aren't willing or able to work a full-time job, but are bored out of their minds, right? And maybe you could have them come on and just be a specialist and only do diagnostics, or maybe they could train, or maybe they could, they're really good at this one task, and you have them work on just that one task, and you're able to sort of fill needs there. Other things that we see is the loss of that sort of institutional legacy knowledge when somebody leaves and they're replaced. We see that with simple things like even with software tools. There's Joe in the shop really knew how to use it. Well, Joe's gone and nobody else knows how to. Well, why didn't you bother to teach everybody else, right? Before Joe left, how come
We see it all the time too. I mean, you're spot on there, Tim. That is, it blows my mind how many people will say, okay, somebody told us 6 months ago that they're retiring, and then like they're looking for a tech like a week before they're actually
before they
retiring.
left.
Yeah. And you're like, no, that's the wrong approach. Don't do that.
It's the head in the sand approach. If I ignore it, it's not a problem until it's a problem. Well, you know what? It
becomes a bigger problem.
It is. You've made it immensely more difficult for yourself because you weren't proactive.
Well, we talk about maintenance all the time, right? Like as an industry, we talk about, these customers must maintain their car, otherwise they're going to have all these problems and, all that stuff. But this is kind of the part of maintaining your business that we just don't do.
Well, because it's the boring part. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people that love working on cars, working on vehicles, and they're not really excited about the business of the business, but that's what keeps you in business,
Yeah.
There's an old adage, I'm probably going to screw it up, but it's like, the shoemaker's kids go barefoot. You know what I mean? It's like, you're really good at the thing you do for other people, but when it comes to yourself, you're horrible at it. You don't do the same thing for yourself that you do for everybody else, right?
As the son of a mechanic that I grew up in a shop, I know the shoemaker's son never had a nice car to drive.
Yeah, you can keep picking it up, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
But no, Jay, I mean, you're absolutely right, though. It's and again, I think that goes back to the comment you made earlier, which is like many people have built a good job for themselves, but not a business. And one way we talk about it is, are you working on your business or are you working in your business?
Yeah.
Right.
It's so huge.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and especially like, you kill yourself day in, day out, blood, sweat, tears, you deal with like tough employees and tough customers many times. You miss out on a lot of family time, over the years, right? All for what, right? You eventually want to be in a situation where like the business is sort of running itself and you don't got to kill yourself every day in order to now start to reap the benefits. You want to be able to take that vacation. You want to be able to like I said, go on the college tour with your kids, right? You want to be able to take advantage of that time. But if you don't run your shop in a way and you don't use tools in a way, and I don't mean mechanical tools, I mean like business tools in a way that's going to allow you that flexibility, allow you that freedom, right? Then why are you doing it? What have you done? What have you built, right? And how do you get out, right? Who's going to buy that? Because if it's reliant solely on you, right? They're not buying you; they're buying your business. But if your business goes away when you go away, well, then guess what? You're not going to get the money you thought you were owed.
No, I think there's a lot of people in that situation right now too, and that's where I do encourage them to use tools like BoltOn or use a coaching company. I referred my dad to. Like kind of similar thing where he was just trapped in the business, right? And we didn't take a lot of vacations growing up, and you're trying to. We honestly, I think we took one vacation my entire time growing up, but it was because you're so focused on getting that business, growing, and it wasn't until probably 5 years ago or so where he got connected with a coach, a coaching organization where. Now he's able to step away from the business and not have to be there every day. And he's much happier as a result. I remember talking to him back then. He's like, if somebody came and they wanted the keys to this damn place, I'd give it to him now. And I'm like, no. Like, let's step back a second. You put way too much work into this just to walk away. Like you need to do it the right way. So maybe as we're talking here, one of the things that's fascinating to me is utilization of software, right? And when I say that, you brought it up earlier in the podcast about, really identifying the struggles of a shop and then notifying them of tools that are available to help them out. One of the struggles that I had when I was in industry was just that. Like I would use 10% of the available tools, and it was because you got into a routine, you got into a habit of this is how I open a work order. This is how I, like you're so focused on that you miss out on so many other opportunities to make your life easier. Do you guys see that? And like, I mean, is it something where you're able to get shops to kind of adapt?
All the time. It's and it's a little bit frustrating because like, our software does so much for these businesses, and we see that, in a number of times it's like being underutilized. On the other hand, we are happy that these shop owners are finding like the one or two things that like they rely on all
Leverage the hell out of, yeah, yeah,
and they just
yeah.
use it over and over and over again. And to a certain extent, you want to be able to say that, well, it's customizable. Like our software does 30 things, but these 5 are the ones that are most important to you. So we want you to be a super user when it comes to those 5. We will continue to encourage and train on all the other pieces, but it's not like yet, to a certain extent, we'd love to see everybody use everything. And,
Right.
And that's actually, that falls on me as the marketing director to get that message out and to communicate and to demonstrate the value of all the software has to offer. But at the end of the day, I mean, these shops, are going to use, what makes the most sense for them, because even though there's common problems across the industry, every shop is different, and they have to be able to utilize it in the way that makes sense for them.
I agree. And one of the things that, when I look at the survey and how you train your customers, it shows that, almost half of shop owners are, independent shop owners are 60 years of age or older. And then another 34% are between 50 and 59 years old. When you're talking to that demographic, not to slight them, because I know there's some that are older than me that are far better at technology than I am, but I know those who are closest to me in that age range don't typically love technology. And so trying to get them to buy into these tools to make their lives easier, that's got to be something in its own.
It's ironic though, because they'll spend thousands of dollars on technology to service a vehicle, but they won't spend, hundreds of dollars to, on technology to service their business. But you are right. I mean, there has been a sort of a generation gap. We actually referred to the survey results, with the wave of retirements coming in as the grain garage. And part of that is because it's not just that there's these retirements coming, but it's just the vast majority are, 50 years or older. And, I don't want to, fall into the stereotype that, they're less tech savvy, because, there's actually quite a few that are very, very tech savvy.
Yeah, absolutely.
The biggest impediment we've seen, though, I would say the biggest challenge is often the fear or resistance to change, and how much that has permeated the culture of the shop. We've always done it this way. It is a very, very common rebuke that we hear, and it's okay. Well, how's that working for you? And then they don't really have a strong answer. You know what I mean? And many times, even if the owner gets it, and many times it does. I mean, I would say that many of our customers, especially in the first 5 or 6 years, were, regardless of age, were very sort of cutting edge. They were innovative. These were people that were typically invested in their shop. They would participate in different coaching and training organizations. They understood the value of the business side of it, not just the repair side of it, right? But as the company grows and the more and more people start to adopt the BoltOn software, we find that you're now getting into what they're not those early adopters, tech savvy people. They're more like the general rank and file, common people. But the biggest challenge has always been like, we've never done it that way before, right or wrong. It's just they've never done it that way before. And even if the owner gets it, a lot of times the owner isn't the one that's actually using it. It's their team that's using it, but then the team resists it.
Yeah.
And we find that the for some reason it's like difficult for the owner to get the team to adopt it. It's like, all right, well, who works for who here? You know what I mean?
Well, it's truly that why, right? And I think that's
value.
When we deal with shops and, say they're introducing MPIs, like multi-point inspections, and they're struggling to get, if you get a veteran tech that's really struggling to adapt to that part, right? And it's, inspections have been around forever, but I think we've, as an industry, gotten more intentional about them in the last decade or so. And that, to me, like you're still seeing resistance. And I think that's where that resistance to change and that resistance to new technology, when they sit down and look at it and they truly have an open mind, even the team members, and this goes for anybody listening to this podcast, is when you sit down and you look at how much easier it can make your life, like it's shocking. And once when people buy in and they just get it, like their life is easier as a result.
You're absolutely right. And I have two quick responses to that. One is that we're not talking about like unfamiliar technology. We're talking about digital technology, right? Something that these people use in every aspect of their life.
Yeah.
Right. They already know how to use a phone. They already know how to text. They already know how to take a picture. Right. We're just now adapting it for the auto repair industry. Right. So it's, to be honest, it's not difficult to understand. It's just new. It's new to your regular daily routine. That's number one, right? It's a myth that, it's hard or it's challenging or I don't understand it. If you have a cell phone, you know how to use it. Second is that's exactly the reason why we have invested so much time and energy and resources into providing training to our shops. And that it runs the gamut from, quick little how-to videos on our website and our YouTube page where you can search and find, like, ask specific questions and you see a video on how to do this, how to do that, to weekly webinars, to full-on user, we call it BoltOn University, which is like a 2-3 day intensive course on everything related to the software, but not just the software, but like how to apply it to your business, right? And that's live and in person. At least it was before the lockdown. Now it's online. But right. And again, that kind of goes back to the what I said before about, like, we created software, but we realized that people needed a better way to needed to better understand, like, how to use it, when to use it, where to use it, which is what pulled us in the training, which is what pulled us into more of this sort of best practices, operations, talking of, like, being thought leaders. This conversation today, Jay, is like perfectly in line with that. You know what I mean? It's like we're trying to get a message out to help these shops and help them understand what not only the opportunities are, but the challenges are, and to know that there's like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Here's the thing: if there's no light at the end of the tunnel, then it's a pit, right?
Yeah.
Then it's a hole, right?
It's 2020.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, there's, for as bad as it's been, for as tough as it's been, for as hard as you guys, like, and gals, and let's be honest, think it might be, there are solutions, but you got to be proactive. Like you said, don't wait until the last minute. You've got to realize that you're not the only game in town. You owe it to yourself and to your family and to the years and years and years you've put into building this business to making it as efficient and as profitable as possible without killing yourself. And there's tools that will allow you to do that, digital tools that will allow you to do that. And, whether your goal is to sell the business or to give it to your kids or your manager, right? Or you're, on the opposite side and you're looking to acquire and grow. Right. These are the types of businesses you want to be looking for. And how do you manage those multiple shops? Right.
Right.
How do you look at, like, P&Ls and statistics and measurements across all of your locations? Right. Digital.
Yeah.
So there's tools out there, but you got to have the right attitude. You got to have the right mindset to take advantage of them.
Well, I think my key takeaway from our podcast today, one of the things that I loved about what you said early on in the podcast was identifying difficulties that a shop might have and then pointing them in the direction of the tools that might help them. Because I think there's so much value in that, where you start to look at something and, like, I used to get overwhelmed with technology and then, like, it just wouldn't do it. Right. So, like, when you say, okay, here's your problem, here's what can fix that problem, and you put it in layman's terms for somebody like me, that makes it much, much easier. So I appreciate you kind of reframing my mind there, because I think that helps a lot. But
and if I could, Jay,
I
just to underscore that, I mean, look, the reason why BoltOn got into was founded in the first place, and this again may sound corny, but I've heard Mike Risich, say this a number of times. He wants to help shop owners be successful, right? Of course, we're all capitalists here. We all want to grow our businesses,
Sure.
BoltOn included. But I mean, the impetus for this was to help shop owners grow. Mike comes from a shop background. He's worked in the repair industry for years. He's a part owner in a couple of local companies. So like he knows it. He's worked in it, and he knows what the challenges are, and it's why he created BoltOn. So it is in everyone's best interest that our customers, that shops, get the most out of the software. We want people to use it.
Yeah.
So if you have it and there's something you don't understand, or if there's something you want it to do and haven't quite figured it out, reach out to us. And it's not just any company out there. They want you to use their product. And, so we have tools and people and resources available to help you if you do have questions. Don't just take it and do the one little thing and realize that there's all this other stuff and forget about all this other stuff that's underneath it, because a lot of that other stuff is going to make your business even more profitable, even more streamlined.
And you'll be happier as a result in general.
That's the goal here. Yeah.
Well, Tim, my friend, it's been fun. We're up on our hour, but I appreciate you joining us. Really enjoyed our conversation today. I enjoy all my conversations with you, and appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you. Yeah, and you're doing a great service for the industry, Jay. I mean, everything you and the folks at Wrench Nation, Find a Wrench provide. Edit that part out.
You're fine.
Yeah. Just providing this forum and format and information to your audience is great, and we thank you for the opportunity, and we look forward to seeing you continue to broadcast for many years to come.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tim.